This $270 remote has completely unlocked my experience of flying the DJI Avata, and although I love what it provides, there are three things that I'm not stoked on. So today we'll cover everything from the actual usability, the features it unlocks, and some pros and cons too. Now, whether you like it or not, the DJI Avata combos only ship with one of the motion controllers, meaning to gain access to all of the features that the Avata offers, you'll need to purchase this additional remote controller. The main features I'm talking about here is manual or acro operating mode, customizable stick rates, and what I would call a more trustworthy connection to flying. To cover all bases here, the operation of this controller does still need to be adjusted to access the manual mode, and I actually encountered some really frustrating issues too when trying to bind it, but not to worry, I have got a full setup guide of this remote, link is in the description for that. Before making set adjustments, however, this controller comes out of the box with the same two modes and safety features as the motion controller did. That being normal flying mode, which maxes out at about 30 kilometers an hour, and sport mode, which maxes out at about 50 kilometers an hour. Both of these modes make it feel essentially like you're flying any other DJI drone, which I thought might be useless for me. However, as it turns out, I actually use these modes alongside full manual mode with every flight. The same safety features I mentioned too are simply the pause button, which stops and hovers, and return to home. We do have a scroll wheel, which is used to adjust the gimbal tilt, and also a custom button which can have a couple of functions mapped to it. Super handy for turtle mode, by the way. Now, I can't comment too much on the normal and sports modes, as I literally switched the controller over to manual mode the moment it arrived. In saying this, however, you can still use these modes within manual mode, it's just slightly different without the spring for throttle up and down being gone. For a quick background here, I personally use the TX16S controller for my other FPV drones and love the feel of both the size and the gimbals themselves. So switching over to a really small compact controller came with its fair share of ups and downs. Let's start off with the form factor. This remote is shaped very much so like a game controller and feels pretty damn light in the hands. The gimbals are in the perfect place to fly with if you just like to use your thumbs. I personally am a bit of a pincher hybrid-y sort of guy, which brings me on to my first gripe. This remote has tiny gimbals and tiny sticks too. Like, pinching these is genuinely a whole new skill to learn, and adapting to the small amount of movements that these gimbals give you is a whole other story. Maybe it's because I'm used to using the TX16S's large gimbals with ripsticks, but damn, it has really been a bit of a challenge for me to adapt to using the DJI remote with the same confidence. To top it off too, it's not even possible to simply replace the stick ends with a new grip because DJI designed these to come out and fit inside of the remote when not in use. This means we either need to custom build something ourselves or wait for a third party to bring something decent to the table. The upside of all this, however, is the fact that it is so stupidly compact and solid that I can easily fit this into my bag just like I could with the motion controller. Another feature that they didn't have to add in, but I am so happy that they did, is this little lanyard mount here. There are plenty of operators who don't use a lanyard, however, I'm one of them that do. It's much nicer, especially with such a small controller, to be able to apply steady pressure to something for stability while flying. So I'll give the overall form factor a 7 out of 10. The next thing is the actual performance and usability. To arm the Avata in manual mode with its default settings, you need to double press the start-stop button. I genuinely don't like this and much prefer having the arming and disarming assigned to the rocker switch here. I cover how to do that in the setup video, by the way. Once you're in the air, however, and you're used to the feel of the controller, the experience is as seamless as anything else. Flying around, you have a rock-solid connection, and it really gives the Avata the true FPV experience that I feel like was missing a little bit with the motion controller. You have the ability to change your gimbal pitch with the scroll wheel, you can hit the pause button regardless of being in manual, and you can even still use the return to home function, which is a really nice safety feature. The controller also allows you to enable turtle mode without having to dig into the menu to activate it, which is a nice touch too. The Avata itself still retains its standard features like low battery return to home and monitoring the heights of things below you. Landing it is where things get really easy with this controller though. I simply switch into normal mode, point my gimbal straight down at the ground, and land like every other DJI drone that I've ever flown. It takes the guesswork out of where you're going to land and just makes the landing process way safer and easier. Now, I do know that there have been some issues with the yaw making the Avata flip when used too aggressively, and yes, I have actually encountered this issue, and it did make me crash into the ground. This was, however, supposedly fixed, however I'm not sure it has been 100%. There really is no good reason behind it, and it doesn't inspire heaps of confidence, especially if I'm flying over something like water, but I haven't had it happen since, and I have tried to replicate it. Something else that doesn't really inspire confidence just yet, but is a really cool feature, is the ability to switch out of the manual mode into normal or sport for a quick break and then switching back into manual mode again. I say that doesn't inspire confidence yet, only because it is such a weird feeling going from standard drone flying back into FPV while still in the air. Super cool to be able to do, really smooth process, just a little scary to get used to. On a real positive note though, something that I have noticed is the battery life. Goddamn, DJI did not have to go this hard, but I am so glad that they did. This remote is rated to 9 hours of usage, which if you manage to kill in a day, you're either doing amazingly well or you just left it on in your bag all day. Also, I wanted to touch on what I meant earlier when I said a more solid feeling connection to flying. When I say this, I don't mean that it actually has better range or anything when comparing to the motion controller. Instead, it does help me at least feel like I have a lot more control over what the drone is doing when flying normal or sport mode. That means more confidence flying close to things, further away, higher up, you name it. So yeah, aside from the weird glitch with the Avata's yaw, everything is smooth as day, meaning I'll give the performance and usability a 9 out of 10. Alright, so for some, this next point isn't going to matter one bit, but if you fly other FPV drones with another controller, you'll know that just changing the rates doesn't make the new controller much easier to adjust to and learn. What I wish was a possibility, but of course never will be as it's DJI, is cross-compatibility with other systems like Crossfire or ELRS. Having the ability to master and use only one controller would be a massive time saver, humongous confidence booster, and just in general offer a much larger range of options. This is just something that I'll have to forget about though and move on from, as I can never see that happening in the near future. Think of it being like Apple introducing AirPods that work seamlessly with a Samsung phone. Maybe one day, but most likely not. They realistically want you to buy their products and their products only, so sadly, that side of FPV isn't quite the same as traditional FPV brands. Now, a question I've been asked before is, do you need the controller for the best experience with the Avata? And my honest opinion to that is split in two ways. Firstly, if you only plan on using the Avata in normal or sport mode and don't have any current intentions on trying manual mode, then no, I don't think it's super worth the upgrade. You can always purchase the controller later on down the road if you feel limited by the motion controller, but until then, you aren't missing out on much really. If you however plan on at least trying manual mode, then I definitely would recommend the upgrade, mainly for the fact that you genuinely cannot try it out without the controller. If you don't have the confidence to go full manual in real life, you can still use this controller to fly normal or sport mode in real life and practice on any sim of your choice in manual mode to learn that side of things while you're still having fun. If you want to purchase this controller, there is a link in the description below. Otherwise, you can watch this video here to learn how to complete the setup and change over from normal to manual mode on the remote too.